Hey Pyro, we are going to take these really fun little blocks and turn them into some seasonal decor. This is the Woodburning Crate Club video tutorial that goes with the box. If you didn't order the box, you're gonna have to go get all these materials yourself. But if you got the box, you got a set of high quality hardwood blocks. If you're new here, I'm Jannie Lisenby, your Pyro professor. Let's burn. Now the first step is to sand them. Now this is optional, you don't have to do it. I just find that it goes so much faster. If you have the Woodburning Tools and Accessories kit, then you will have one of these sanding blocks. It's a 220 grit. And you just want to sand every side of every block. And you want to sand it in the direction of the wood. Next up, you want to prepare the patterns. So I have for you here enough for every block, every side of every block to have something. So there are 6 blocks and each block has 6 sides. And since there was only enough room for 5 blocks across, then I went ahead and made one row that was just the first block on every line. So for example, the heart here goes with love. And then the clover goes with lucky. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut them out and get them ready. And if you have the Woodburning Tools and Accessories kit, then you will have this cute pair of scissors. I'm going to cut out this heart. Wood is very rarely cut exactly perfectly. Just line them up so that they are pretty much the same size all the way across. And then you're going to start lining these up on the blocks. And all you need to do is tape down one side. You don't need to tape down everything. And line it up along one edge, and without covering the pattern, I don't want the pattern covered, I'm going to just tape that down. And that's going to help it be right there on that edge. Now, I fold it down to see where it's going to hit. And you can see that this is awfully close. So if I wanted to, I could simply lift this up and move it just a tiny bit. And then you can place it exactly where you want it on your block. That one's ready.
And with as many little patterns that we have, it's a really great idea to just cut up a whole bunch of pieces of tape and get them ready.
I'm going to place them all on their blocks. And then I'm going to carefully line up this bottom ledge. Tape that down. And you want to make sure that you tape it down so that you can lift it, but it won't lose your place. I'm going to line it up with the bottom so that this here, the pattern here, is flush with the block. Then we'll do the same thing with this block. So now we just need to transfer our pattern.
I'm using carbon paper that you got in your crate, and I'm simply going to place the shiny side down on the wood underneath the paper. And then I'm going to trace over it using my tracing tool. If you got the Woodburning Tools and Accessories kit add-on, then you will definitely have one of these. Now, if you don't have a tracing tool, just use a pen or a pencil. You might also notice that I'm using blocks to prop up my hand to the same level as the block that I'm working on. This helps my hand to not cramp up as much, and I'll do the same thing when I'm burning.
See how nicely that transferred? And I'm going to do that with the rest of these blocks. So that side is entirely traced. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with these blocks and the different sides. All I'm going to do is make sure that I keep them together, and then I rotate all of them one space. Now I am going to keep reusing this carbon paper because carbon paper is reusable. So I'm going to use the same corner that I used for the other blocks. Time to switch again. This time I'm going to do the summer pattern.
Now, sometimes when you're tracing, you can make some of these wobbly lines, and that's okay if you're planning to burn over it. But if you are not planning to burn over it, then you need to make sure that you are erasing those extra lines. And you can use sandpaper, or you can use something like the sand eraser. And this is something that comes in the Woodburning Tools and Accessories kit. So if you got this, then you have one of these sand erasers.
Once again, make sure everything is lined up. You don't need this turned on its side. You want to make sure everything's lined up the way it's supposed to be, and turn it.
Now that we've got these 4 sides done, it's time to twist the blocks to get the last couple sides in. Then you simply turn it back twice to get to the last side to trace. Now for the fun part, it's time to burn, and we're going to use different nibs for most of these sides, and I'll show you which nibs to use based on which burner you have.
If you are using a burner like this, I would recommend using like a small chisel tip. This is actually the calligraphy point. And then this one is the shading point. And so either one of these is going to get you a nice sharp edge, but it can also fill in those spaces really nicely. If you have one of these kind of burners, then you're probably going to want something more like this. This one is also kind of a chisel tip, a universal point. And then this one, I actually don't know what this is called, but it is kind of a knife point, kind of a chisel tip. It's kind of a mix between those. If you're using one of these kinds of pens, I would recommend a shading point of some kind. This one is a large, round, flat shader. This one is a small, heavy shader, and either one of these will be great. I'm going to use the small, heavy shader. You turn it on to kind of a medium high heat. Instead of just outlining it really sharply, I'm going to outline it kind of flatly. I don't care what the inside looks like, because I'm going to fill that in a minute. The biggest thing is just outlining those edges and making sure that those edges are nice and clean. Once you have that outlined, then you can just fill it in. Now, if you scribble this way and that, it's probably going to show, because that's what wood burning does. It shows the texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a texture, whether if you want to do stripes or if you want to do dots or whatever, totally up to you. I am going to fill this in using dots.
See all that fun texture? I'm going to do the same thing with the letters, where I give it a basic outline and then I fill in the letters afterwards.
Now that we have this outlined, all you have to do is fill those in.
This one turned out to be one of my favorite sides of these blocks. You guys will have to let me know in the comments what your favorites are. And this side is done. The biggest thing you're going to want to do is outline the letters first and then fill them in with the texture. Now you could do lines and then dots and lines, and you could make it really cute that way, or you could fill them all in the same way. For one of these tools, you might want to use something like the shading point or use a chisel tip. If you have one of these burners, this nib will be really nice for this kind of lettering. You can also use a nib like this, which is very similar to the chisel point. And if you have one of these, I would stick with a small round shader. Now again, the first thing you want to do is outline it. So get the sharp edge of the burner up against the edge of the letters, and then you can fill in those letters however you'd like. And if you are enjoying this tutorial so far, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit that like button. That helps this video to reach more people who would be interested in wood burning crafts like this one. Thank you so much. And there's the second side, totally finished. Now for the next 4 sides, you can use any of these kind of nibs. If you have this burner, I would use the flow point. If you have this burner, I'd use this point that looks more like the flow point. And if you have a wire nib burner, I would use a writing nib, or I would use a ballpoint. This one is a large ballpoint. I am going to use the ballpoint this time, and I'm going to have it at a medium-high heat. Then I am simply going to start by pulling the burner towards me and swing back and forth anytime I get a little blob. I'm just going to swing it back and forth to smooth out those little blobs. Now you want the cursive to be one continuous line, so I like to start where the last block left off and then pull that in. In the end, this one turned out to be my #1 favorite. You'll have to let me know in the comments what your favorite is. I'm going to switch to the writing nib for the next 3 sides of the blocks. Feel free to stick with the nib you're using though if you like it better. And I am going to burn this basically the same way that I burned the spring one. I'm just using a different nib. And just like we did with the spring blocks, we are going to want a continuous line, and so we want to start where the last block left off so that it has a continuous line. With this side done, we're ready to move on to autumn. And again, we're just using the same nib and doing the same process that we did with the spring side and the love side. And because it's not cursive, we don't have to worry about lining up the sides of the blocks. Now, if you like projects like these, you should probably subscribe to the channel because we're going to be putting out more projects every month and you don't want to miss it. Now, using the same nib that I used on the love blocks and the autumn blocks, I'm going to trace over the word winter. I really like the simplicity of this one, and I love the little snowflake star. It makes me really happy. And now winter is entirely done. All we have left is to finish it with a sealant. You'll need a lint-free cloth and you will need some wood conditioner. I'm using a butcher block oil. As far as how much you need, you only need about the size of a garden pea, and then you just rub that in. Then give it about 15 minutes to soak in, and then just wipe off whatever is left over. Once you have all the blocks sealed, then they're ready to go up on your shelf and be used all year long. I absolutely love how this month's project turned out. You'll have to let me know in the comments which side was your favorite. And if you missed last month's project, I'm gonna put that up on the screen for you to enjoy right now. And remember, I've got a bazillion videos coming up soon to help you get the clean, crisp, smooth burns that you crave. I hope you'll join me on this journey. Later, Pyro.